Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the studio tonight we have local author Paul Hare here to talk about his latest book, and as usual we'll have a roundup of the sporting action. But first, it's over to Emma Lingard for the news roundup.
Hello. In the headlines today, the Prime Minister has praised a scheme which has helped local families, and the area's businesswomen air their voice, and Barrow's John Harrison is commemorated with a train. David Cameron praised some of Yorkshire and the Humber's most troubled families for getting their lives back on track thanks to a scheme which could save local services more than £42 million. 2 years ago, he set out a challenge to improve the lives of Britain's most troubled families, identifying over 2,000 in East Yorkshire and Northern Lincolnshire. And figures from the Department for Communities and Local Government released yesterday show things have turned around for 563 of those families, just over 1 in 5. It's estimated it costs public services around £75,000 a year to deal with Britain's most troubled families. A select group of local businesswomen have participated in a forum with the British Chamber of Commerce, which could change equality and diversity in the workplace. Wendy Bowers from the national organisation met with the ladies in North East Lincolnshire to get their views and opinions on how women are treated at work. The views could form part of a government white paper. The ladies belong to the Professional Six group, which is aimed at women in business.
There is a clear business case for diversity, so it's not just all about women, although there's been a lot of focus on the fact that there are very few women on boards, especially of our top 100 FTSE companies. This is about society being diverse, society being global, business being global, and we have to recognise that unless our senior management teams actually represent our customers and our makeup of society, then our businesses will not succeed and be the best that they can be.
Wendy's putting together a white paper and we've been asked to host today's event so that we can contribute, and it's a real honour for us to be able to do that.
An organisation which helps people rehabilitate after illness and injury is holding a family fun day this weekend in Grimsby. The aim of the day is to inform people about the range of services offered by the Hope Specialist Services Group. One of the initiatives is a weekly fishing session to help those as part of their recovery programme. Sylvia Leary, who's organised the event, hopes the public will see how they can help.
Well, the Family Fun Day really it was an idea from Staff Voice Group, and I felt that locally a lot of people don't know what services there are out there, and I thought it would be a really good opportunity to look at promoting health and social care with some fun element attached to that. And it was a Staff Voice idea from Care Plus Group, but obviously we didn't anticipate it going to be expanding onto the scale that it has.
And the event takes place at People's Park on Saturday. One of Lincolnshire's finest churches is holding an exhibition this weekend to help raise funds. St Mary's in Marsh Chapel, known as the Cathedral in the Marshes, will open its doors to the public this Sunday and Monday. The ABC of Lincolnshire history has been put together by volunteers and showcases the region's heritage. It includes many photographs, tales and artefacts gathered by villagers.
Well, this weekend for 2 days, on Sunday and Monday, we're holding an exhibition which we have done for several years now on different topics, and this exhibition is called the ABC of Lincolnshire History. We've also got stalls outside. The entry is completely free. They're quite happy for them to wander in and out. They can go outside for a cup of tea, have a piece of cake, buy something off the stall if they want to, and come back in again and look round again if they've missed something. Obviously, it's to raise money for the church. You know, whatever money that we raise from this event probably will hardly cover the insurance. But you've got to keep trying because this is a beautiful building.
A new train has been launched in Barton, named after one of Lincolnshire's most prominent historic figures. It's named the John Longitude Harrison, after the self-educated man from Barrow who invented the marine chronometer. It accurately kept time and allowed ships to establish their position of longitude, changing long-distance sea travel forever and saving thousands of lives. And that's all from me. Goodbye.
This year sees the start of the tributes and commemoration of 100 years since the start of the First World War. There are many books and programmes being made about it. Joining me in the studio is local author Paul Hare, who's written several books on the subject, including, and I say this carefully, Fokker Fodder, Mount of Aces, and his latest, Britain's Forgotten Fighters of World War I. Paul, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
This latest book, Forgotten Fighters, what's that? We can think of a few of the aircraft that we know the names of who fought in World War I. The Sopwith Camel is bound to be the most famous.
Indeed.
What are some of the forgotten aircraft?
The forgotten fighters include such machines as the Bristol Scout, the Sopwith Tabloid, and later on the de Havilland 5, the Martinside Buzzard.
These are wonderful names.
They are indeed.
And they are. And I was a little boy, I used to make all these Airfix models and everything. I thought I was fairly familiar with them. Why were these aircraft not as successful or not as famous as the Camel?
At the beginning of the war, the aeroplanes were designed as fast reconnaissance machines, simply as scouts, which was the word that was then applied to all fighter aeroplanes in that war, but they were unarmed. And when Germany introduced machines which had machine guns fitted, our aeroplanes were hastily armed by whatever means possible so that they could fight back against them. And they were reasonably successful, but were rapidly superseded by purpose-designed fighters, some of which are also included in the book as being less well known.
It's remarkable to think that people were sent up in aircraft in conflict without guns. I know there were problems with making the propellers turn in a particular rhythm that meant that the blades weren't shot off by machine gun fire going through the circumference of the propeller.
Indeed. The solution to that was to make the propeller fire the gun, in effect, which worked reasonably well, except that then if the pilot throttled down his engine, his gun slowed down too.
The German aircraft were advanced more than the British ones?
They introduced the forward-firing machine gun first, yes. A Dutchman called Anthony Fokker introduced the first aeroplane in 1915 with a forward-firing machine gun on the German side.
And so there were other aircraft where the machine guns, the armaments were facing out sideways.
Yes.
Fighting more in the style of a ship of the line than
exactly.
of a dog-fighting aircraft.
In fact, at the beginning of aerial sort of conflict, it was imagined that is how aeroplanes would fight. And so the idea was that the pilot was sat at the back with the engine behind him, and the gunner in front of him, sort of in a cockpit that was open then to the front end to all sides, so that the gunner could fire up, down and sideways to meet the threat from wherever it came.
I'm no aerial tactician, but that sounds like a brilliant solution. Why didn't that work?
Because it's very difficult to aim a moving gun at a moving aeroplane from a moving platform. Something had to be fixed, and the idea was to fix the gun to the aeroplane's line of sight, so then all one aeroplane had to do was fly directly at another and pull the trigger.
We've mentioned that the origin of aviation tactics were thought to be more naval than military in concept.
Indeed, yes.
But very quickly these gallant men found themselves thinking of themselves as cavalrymen or as knights of the air. There was a very chivalrous ethos.
There was a very chivalrous ethos. At the beginning of the war, in the period when aeroplanes were unarmed, it was not uncommon for a British pilot, if meeting a German aeroplane, to simply wave at the pilot as a fellow sort of, knight of the air, and to go about their business unmolested. But of course it couldn't last. It was a war.
Well, yes, it's a great pity though, isn't it, really? What difference strategically, we've spoken of the tactics, but strategically, what difference did air power make? How important was it to control the skies?
It was vital, even with trench warfare, with constant reconnaissance carried out over the ground behind the enemy lines, then any build-up of men and materials which would sort of, as a preliminary to a new advance, could instantly be spotted, and precautions sort of taken, either the sort of shell dumps bombed, or more troops brought into the line to meet the thrust.
And of course, it was a complete surprise to them. Nobody had really understood the importance of air power in warfare before.
Not really, no. In one or two sort of practice manoeuvres in the years immediately before the war, some inkling was sort of gained of how it might be, but nobody had ever visaged trench warfare. It was always going to be a war of movement, of needing to constantly relocate a moving enemy, and that didn't happen.
Had there been an application for aircraft, a military application for aircraft before the First World War?
There were one or two sort of minor skirmishes. I think a conflict between Italy and Turkey, I believe, in about 1911 or 12 was the first military use of aeroplanes.
How did you get interested in this? It's a fascinating subject. What's your connection?
I've always been interested in aeroplanes ever since I was a small boy, starting out perhaps as you did, making models, and eventually realising that my skill as a model maker wasn't up to my skill as a critic. So I began by contributing short articles to magazines, focusing more and more on a particular sort of type of aeroplanes, those made by the Royal Aircraft Factory at Farnborough, until eventually I was invited to write a book on that subject.
And how many books have you written now?
I've written 6 hardbacks and 5 sort of flimsier paperbacks for modellers.
We must just get the details. This latest one is Forgotten Fighters of World War I.
It is.
And who's publishing it?
It's Fonthill Media, and it's due out in a few weeks' time. It's at the printers now.
And where will it be available?
It will be available from any bookseller. I'm not going to name any names, but there's one in Freshney Place that will order it for you if you want a copy.
And Amazon?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, all right. Paul, thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating subjects, and I look forward to seeing your book.
Sure.
Now I have some sports news for you. Hull travelled to Aston Villa, who, like Fulham last week, are in desperate need of the points to stand a chance of staying up in the Premier League. While manager Steve Bruce won't underestimate his opponents, he might use it to give game time to fringe players who maybe haven't played much over the course of the season to date. On Sunday, Grimsby are at Gateshead for the second leg of their Skrill Premier playoff, with the winners facing Halifax or Cambridge in the final at Wembley. Despite losing 2-0 at Guiseley in the Conference North playoff first leg on Wednesday night, North Ferriby manager Bill Heath remains confident that his side can overturn the deficit at Church Road, although they did lose 3-2 to them in the regular season. In cricket, Cleethorpes first 11 head north to face Scarborough first 11. Elsewhere, Caster's first 11 are at home to their first 11 counterparts, Messingham. Meanwhile, in mixed martial arts on Saturday evening, from Fight Ministry lightweight representative Louis Chapman will hope to be victorious over Andre Winner at All or Nothing competition in Leeds. Local boxer Nathan French will be looking to settle some scores against Muma Mwimba tonight, that's tonight and Friday, who beat him in controversial points victory when they last met. The bout also marks the final time that Nathan fights as an amateur before going professional. And finally, another local boxer, Kirsty Hill, faces Lorna Redfern in Liverpool on Saturday evening. And that's all from us. If you have any stories, email news to estuary.tv or contact us via our Twitter or Facebook pages, or pick up the phone and call us on 01472 315561. Until tomorrow, goodbye.